All right, it's the Get Tuned podcast, and I'm your host, Will Surphlis. I'm here with Jake Stauffer today. Jake, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, not so bad, man. Just living and breathing. You good?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm in Nashville right now, so I'm excited
Yeah,
about that.
that's cool, man.
All right, so we'll dive right into it. So, how early did you start to identify with music? Like, not play an instrument, but when you realized it was something that you wanted to, that hit you as a passion.
It's like music has always been present. Like growing up with my parents, they crushing Bonnie Wright and Black Crows and Zeppelin and everything right from the get go, right? So it was kind of one of those things that always has kind of been there, and I always dug and got into, especially with the like singing and like soul singers and stuff like that. My mom always was singing and I around the house, and it just made me kind of want to get into that. And it always connected with me, right? It always made me feel good and happy. Listening to music was always a fun time growing up.
So, what are you mentioned Led Zeppelin and Bonnie Raitt and stuff like that? So, what are some of your influences then, including them?
Oh, there's so much, man. But I I gotta say, like, my favorite singer of all time is Freddie Mercury, Queen.
Yeah.
So he's probably one of the biggest influences, like for my singing style and the type of music that I like to play in general. But there's so many, especially more in the recent years, like Daniel Caesar and her. I've been really kind of getting into more of that R&B kind of influence when I'm listening, at least, and it helps with like the pop. But yeah, Black Crows, Bonnie Wright, oh man, BB King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all the classics.
Yeah.
That's my parents were big on the blues and rock growing up, so it was always playing at my house. So that's the kind of stuff that got me kind of in the right direction.
So, you've mentioned quite a few bands there. Have you seen any of those that you said live, or like, do you have a concert experience that was like out of this world?
Probably my favorite show I've ever seen. I have two top two, and they were in the last 5 years. Daniel Caesar at the Budweiser stage, absolutely incredible. He sold out 2 nights in a row. And the thing about him that really stands out to me is he's from Oshawa, and
Yeah.
he's like one of the biggest artists kind of rocking around right now. And to watch that show, and he was super professional, and the sound was amazing, and he was pretty much perfect. So that was huge for me, especially to see, a guy from this place where I come from selling at a venue like that 2 nights in a row
Yeah.
is like pretty wild. And then this band called a Lake Street Dive. I saw them at Danforth Music Hall a couple years ago, and it was incredible. The singer Rachel, she had a broken leg, and she was just riding around on a scooter and sitting in this big, huge chair. She champed it. They're probably the tightest band I've ever seen. No other band ever played like that. They were legit.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Broken leg
so
and
good.
still
Yeah,
keeps on going.
not even didn't even miss a beat, man. She was just like champing. Everyone's freaking out about Dave Grohl doing that, and she's over there champing it.
That's
Yeah,
unreal. So, how long have you been playing for then, and what instrument did you start with? Because I know you're a multi-instrumental person. That is not the right way to say that, but you play more than one instrument.
yeah, yeah. I started playing drums when I was like 11 or 12. My dad worked at the high school that I went to, and they had just bought a new drum kit for the school, and they were gonna toss the other one. So instead of tossing it, he put it in his truck and brought it
Yeah.
home for me.
Yeah.
And so we had this piece of shit drum set in the basement that I would just wail on all the time. And then I met my best friend Matt Seghetti, and his mom played guitar and piano and was teaching Matt, some simple chords and stuff. And I would remember going over to his house and hanging out, and that's when I started learning guitar, probably around 13. And that's where I really dove in on guitar as my like main instrument. So yeah, that was the start for me. The drummer, it just didn't seem as cool back then. I wanted all the chickies' attention.
That's funny. I myself started on the drums also, probably around the same. I was like 10, and then I started playing guitar when I was like 11 or 12.
Yeah,
But the drumming, and I talked in a previous episode with Dustin Cormier about this too. You know Dustin from Bosom.
yeah,
He started on the drums also, and it's like it's a great base for any musician to start on because rhythm is in every type of music, right?
exactly.
No matter what, there's a rhythm in every single type of music.
Yeah,
And I said even in the episode with him, you can get into some obscurities where there isn't a good rhythm and some weird jazz stuff. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
for the most part, there's always some you're tapping your foot to something if you're
yeah,
listening to
exactly,
something, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So how long have you been writing for? I know you've been writing for quite a while.
Ooh. See, I always sucked at learning covers when I was growing up. Like, I went through a big metal phase where I would try to learn songs that were just way out of my wheelhouse. So I would just get frustrated. And then from there, it basically just kind of led me into writing my own stuff because I couldn't quite grasp the riffs that I was trying to learn. So I would just make my own out of the riff that I was trying to learn. So I would say I wrote my first song when I was like 14 or 15. It was awful, terrible love song that I wrote for some girl at my high school, but I don't think I ever showed her. Um, but yeah, taking like writing seriously was probably in my first band around 17, 18 when I started, when I was a part of writing my first record with a band, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'd probably say 15 to 17.
All right.
Yeah.
So and you produce music also. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So for yourself and for others. Um,
Yeah.
back then when you were recording this wasn't in the list that I gave you before, but I'll swing this one at you.
Okay.
Back then when you were recording, did you record that yourself?
No, no, no. The first recording experience I ever had was with my first band, Idol of Exile. We were this like metalcore band, and we played the dungeon like every weekend for Supernova. But we won a Supernova Battle of the Bands, and we got 12 hours recording time or something. So we went out to this studio in Scarborough. I can't remember what it was called, but that was my first real experience in a studio. And then we basically tried to build our own home studio, and we had recorded stuff, and it always just turned out awful. So I kind of hindered me away from it. So I really tried to more so focus on going into studios and recording there. Like with Sleep When You're Dead, my older band that I was in, we did a lot of stuff at Newcomb Studios and the name of the other studio, but yeah, we tried to stay away from doing stuff ourselves because we weren't good at it at the time, you know. So once I left that band and I took tattooing on more full time and became a dad, that was when I really dived into recording my own stuff. You know, I just started out with recording it on my cell phone with I had GarageBand, it came with my iPhone, and that was really the start of it, right? And then a few of my friends went to school for it, so they would give me tips and tricks, and it wasn't something I ever really saw myself doing for other people. It was more of a way just to demo, but then as the years kind of went on and on and on, that's when I started staying away from studios, and now I do everything myself at home in my own studio. So I'd probably say I started really dialing into it in my early 20s, kind of 23-ish, you know what I mean? All before that, we were just hucking out, shelling out the cat, getting people to record for us.
I think GarageBand, you'd mentioned that, and I'm pretty sure that was like a big starter for a lot of people when that came out, and it was so accessible for people to be able to do their own recordings, and it was a lot more simplified than being in the big studio and everything like that. A lot of these home recordings started coming out, right?
Yeah, man, GarageBand was the start for me. Like doing MIDI drums and MIDI keyboards and even just experiencing what the fuck MIDI even was.
Yeah.
Like I had no fucking clue. And like back in the day with my older band, it was kind of tough to get our drummer to, come in and lay anything down if I had demo ideas that I wanted, and sometimes my ideas weren't in set in stone, right? So to be able to create a drum beat just on my phone, doing all the MIDI shit, it really changed the game for me being able to write. And it actually kind of formed the process of how I write all my music now. It's all done in the software, like right as I'm going, I'm making the drum beat as I'm kind of writing the guitar riff, and it all kind of happens at once. It gives you a little bit more of that finished product right off the hop, and that's what I really loved about it, and still love about it, right?
Yeah. I get that. Um, so is there like a favorite project that you've produced for yourself or for others?
Well, I always like working with you, my dude. It's always
Okay.
a good time.
Okay, you
We
didn't
work
need to
well.
plug that.
We work well together. No, of
Yes, we do.
course.
Yes. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jake produces my songs that I've released, and I do. I have a great time working with you, man.
Yeah, it's always fun. Honestly, I haven't done a lot of outside projects besides with you and a handful of other artists, but I probably say doing the Weapons Morningside stuff has always been a lot of fun. It is my own project, but working with the guys in that sort of sense was always fun and more relaxed than whenever we went into a studio. So it really kind of gave us more of a chance to actually bond and get our ideas out. But yeah, I'd probably say working with you and doing my own stuff is always been the funnest. I've had a few rocky rocky clients, but it's all a learning experience, right? So the more I go with it, the more I'll learn, and I'm sure I'll have good times ahead.
So that being said, do you prefer being in the studio or do you prefer being out live playing with a live band? Because I know when you and I, when we've talked together in the studio, you said before previously that you enjoy the fact that you can put whatever you want into the song because you can only fit so many people on a stage in downtown
Yeah.
Oshawa. You know what I mean? So, like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the live experience or do you prefer being in the studio and the tediousness of it?
I definitely would say that I prefer the studio.
Yeah.
I love playing live, especially with the kind of most latest setup that we have, where we've established backing tracks, and we're all playing in-ear monitors with a click and all that, so we can do more. And there's, I'm backing track and vocals and keyboards and trumpets and all this stuff, but it's the studio where I find I'm probably the most comfortable and happiest because a lot of my songs they'll have 40 vocals on it, and
Yep.
I'm not paying a choir to come play with us every time. So yeah, the studio is where I find I get the most joy with music, especially because I can hear it right back immediately, and it's kind of this instant gratification. We live in this world of everything now, and our brains are kind of accustomed to it, right? So it kind of helps with that and the modern age. I dig it. I dig the studio for sure.
Yeah, I thought that that would be your answer. To be honest, I was if I had to bet on it, I would have bet the over.
Yeah. This playing live is just so stressful, and it relies on a lot of other people. And um, myself, I have a hard time putting faith, and not so much putting faith in other people, but like letting things out of my control when it comes to the music. I want to kind of have my thumb on the pulse on everything, right? And then when I have to kind of step back and let the other guys do their job, who knows who's been drinking, who's been doing what, you know what I mean? It's like it stresses me out. Even though we always pull through in the end, it's before we go on. I'm always like grumpy and kind of in my own head because I'm like worrying about everybody else, just sound guy, and are there people coming? Are we gonna get paid? Where's the promoter? Have I who's it's just so much that when I'm in the studio, it's just me, maybe one other person, and I don't have to really stress too much about other people making mistakes, or even if they do make mistakes, like it's just a simple couple clicks and we redo it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that being said as well, like you don't drink. You,
no, I don't.
I know you used to, but you don't drink now. So yeah, I could understand that being playing live with musicians that are drinking, it can be stressful sometimes. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, man, it gets super stressful. Yeah, I have no interest in booze or drugs. I've been down that road too many times. So yeah, once you start to see a certain pattern with your bandmates and stuff, you see those things coming, and you can see the disaster rolling in like a bad storm. You know what I mean? So it definitely you got to throw your raincoat on from time to time.
I like that metaphor. Okay, so earlier I meant to ask you this when you were talking about the instruments that you play and stuff like that, but you said you started on drums, you didn't love it at first, but I know lately you've been really diving into the drums, right?
Yeah, it's like my main instrument at the moment. Well, I play guitar, bass, vocals, keys, and drums, but I think the big thing with drums is that I've never really had a space to do it. Always lived in small apartments, or my parents' house, and they don't want to hear that shit. So it was always difficult for me to even practice. And I had like an electric drum kit at one of my smaller apartments before, but it still just wasn't the same feel. So once I moved into my home, where I have 4 bedrooms and a basement, and I have the space to do it, that was when I really was like, okay, I'm going to take this time while I'm here, because God knows how long I'll stay here for. Man, my landlord's the best, but yeah, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of the space that I have, and really dial in on an instrument that I have fun playing, but I've never had a chance to really take serious and devote some actual time to see what kind of skills I can actually build on it. Um, and yeah, I've been having a blast playing drums lately, and I get a lot of aggression out.
Yes, I can get that. So this one I didn't have written down either, but would you ever consider, I know you've almost always been the front man, right? Would you consider in the future taking the backside?
Oh yeah, man! I play drums in a punk band currently, actually,
Okay.
called Dim. It's with Matt Sigeti. He plays in Morningside with me, and we played in Sleep When You're Dead together and Idol of Exile. He's been in basically every band I've ever been in. But we're just like a crappy 2-piece punk band that we play just awful punk riffs, but it's awful, but in a good way. We try to sound crappy on purpose. But we have like an EP out on Spotify and iTunes and all that jazz, and we're actually going to be working on some more stuff tomorrow. He's coming by, and we're going to lay down some drums and stuff for our song called Sausage Chips.
Like,
Yeah.
nice. I like
So,
that.
but I have definitely would consider playing in even like rock bands or metal bands, whatever. I'd love to play drums in a band like that for sure.
So I know you actually just touched a little bit on my next question here. What projects are you currently working on and releasing? You said that you were working on something with Matt right now. So how
Yeah.
long have you guys been working on that together for? And touch on that a bit.
Well, Dim has been it's Matt's, like Dim is Matt. It stands for Dying Inside Myself. And so like his stage name is Dim when we play. Uh, but we've been working on that for about a year now or so. We don't take it overly too serious, because we were doing the Morningside thing more of as our main focus. But with the times kind of changing and whatever, we're going to put a little bit more effort into writing a couple singles and just putting it out, put a video. And I think he wants to start playing some shows. So we're fingers crossed get a couple gigs. We got to kind of fill in with a couple other musicians, but I think we'll do some hire-ons. But yeah, it's been about a year or two of on and off recording, and whenever we get some spare time, we just kind of get in and dick around and write some weird, obscure punk music. So, um, and I have a solo project that I've been working on for a few years now, and I have a record, a full record, 6 songs. What's an EP, I guess, but I don't know when or what the deal is with me releasing it. I am super critical of myself, so I think I need to do a bit more work on it before it's ready. But the songs are done and recorded and mixed and mastered. I just hate hate being the guy that has to pull the trigger and say, okay, yeah, this is ready, you know.
Yeah.
So you never know. Maybe that will be soon. Maybe
Maybe it'll
maybe
be out before this episode airs, and if it is, then
yeah,
we'll link it.
yeah. Or maybe it'll never. Maybe it'll just sit in my Google Drive until the day I die.
So, like, how do you identify what type of content that you want to write about or sing about?
Well, it really depends on how I'm feeling, right? I write majority of my music. Uh, it's self-centered, I guess you could say, around my feelings, the actions of my peers and my family, experiences. I wrote a lot about my when I was going through a custody battle with my ex for my son. Um, when Weapons put out an EP, that whole EP was basically written around my son. And
Is that Skin and Bones?
no, that was like technically a Morningside record,
Okay.
but it was the Weapons EP for when we were called Weapons. It's still up on all the platforms if you want to go give a listen to it. It's a bit more rock and roll than the stuff that I'm putting out now, but a lot of it, yeah, was based around my frustrations with my ex, frustrations with the court, and how much I love and miss my son because I didn't get to see him for a while. Um, and then in the end, he ended up staying with me, and I won the court battle. So there's a few songs about that as well. Then Skin and Bones was a bit of a mixture of the two, where there's some songs more about society and not so much government or politics, but um, more so like the one song City TV is about like how the news kind of broadcasts whatever the agenda is for the government, or that
The
like
narrative, right? Yeah.
the invisible entity that is so much further above all of us, right? So it's kind of describing the ruthlessness in that. And then there's a few songs where um, it's more like mental health related. And then with the new EP that we're going to be currently working on soon enough, there's a lot of self-reflection and writing about depression and mental health and drug addiction, getting through it, and having that fight and that drive to be more than the drugs or more than your depression, and to find the joy in life again.
I like that. I like that. So we touched on this a little bit earlier in the studio. You like being in the studio because you can add like whatever you want, right? If you were playing live, though, what's your ideal lineup? If you could pick, literally, you could have a choir, you could have everything. Like,
Oh,
what would you have in that lineup, or do we have enough time to even talk about that?
no, it would honestly be fairly simple. Couple keyboard players would be tight. Uh, Bass, 3 guitars, drums, percussion, and then make sure everybody can sing.
Yeah,
And so that would probably be ideal, because then I don't have to have an actual choir if everybody can sing. But it'd be cool to have the 2 keyboard players would be nice, because you can have one guy kind of playing piano parts with an organ, and then the other guy doing more synthy stuff, or even have one guy kind of dedicated to more of doing strings and trumpets and stuff like that, have that big band kind of feel. because I do like to incorporate a lot of brass instruments and uh, violins and cellos and everything into the music, right? And having the percussion would be cool too, because you can create a lot of volume and movement if you have that kind of a timpani kind of setup, or even just a little bit of bongo. You can create some alternative rhythms where your main drummer keeps it pretty simple, and then they can add in the AE andas and whatnot.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so I think yeah, 6 or 7 piece, nothing too crazy. No, and you can always expand on that, right? So like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if you write the music, like I've even seen like some bands like Dimmu Borgir, they're like a metal band where they write this really symphonic operatic music, and live most of the time it's on a backing track and they're just a 5 piece, but I've seen them play with like a 200 piece orchestra and they have big choirs and people playing strings and trumpets and all sorts of stuff. Or even like the Deer Hunter, for example, where their music is very theatrical, with tons of big band style music in the back, and they can go from playing as the 6 piece band that they normally are, to playing some shows where they've done in the past where they have the full band orchestra, and it really just makes the music um, uh, like more, and you
It
can
just
really
fills it
hear.
out, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can hear what they're going for, but the music translates from both, so they can kind of go without or with, and that's the thing that I really like about you know you can have a simple setup and just continuously expand on it. But if the songs are good, you can kind of go 2 piece or even 3 piece, and it not really is going to change too much. And technology nowadays, you can have 2 people on stage and have 500 instruments playing. So
Yeah. That is true.
it's
Yeah.
pretty tight. So
So I didn't have this question on the list, but what's a band you're binging right now?
oh man, I'm not really binging at one particular band too hard. There's a couple songs that I'm been really into. It's kind of I like a lot of like weird, stupid pop music. But this girl Julia Michaels, she has a song called "All Your Exes," and it is the catchiest shit I've ever heard, and I'm really into it. I love Sam Fender. Sam Fender is big, huge influence for me as well, especially with the Morningside stuff. So if there was, yeah, I'd probably say Sam Fender, and yeah, I'd say Sam Fender. Yeah, I could crush him like crazy. And the Deer Hunter is my other favorite band, and I'll go months without listening to them, and then I'm listening to them for like 6 months straight, and it's get back and forth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. All right, so we're getting pretty close to the end of the questions here, but I guess this will be the last one. What's is there a message you want everybody to hear? It's not really a question, but is there what's your message to everybody listening?
Um, Come get tattooed by me.
There you go.
um, no, that's you could if you want, but I don't know. If you listen to my music, I just hope that you can find something that you relate to in it, and if you're struggling, hopefully I can give you the boost that you need. Big thing is, um, fuck, I hate that I suck at these. But no, just have fun. Play music because you love it. It doesn't matter if you make a fucking ton of money or what. Be happy and make sure you're doing it for the love of it. Like just like what you're doing right now, traveling all over because you love it. It's not because you're gonna make any money or anything like that. The money and the success will come if you're putting out good music, and support the people in the bands that you like, whether or not they're big or popular or other people like them. Fuck that shit, who cares? If it makes you feel good, do it. If it doesn't, then fuck off with it.
All right, I like that. I like that message for sure.
Yeah.
So You mentioned tattooing. You've mentioned Spotify accounts and stuff like this. Why don't you go through a quick, and we will tag all of this stuff also. But why don't you go through all your social medias and stuff like that for
Okay,
people to
cool.
contact you with stuff with inquiries.
Yeah. So my main account for Instagram is Jake LOTD. It's my tattooing account. I've been tattooing at Luck of the Draw for just shy of 10 years. It's been my career and will continue to be my career probably for the rest of my life. And then I have Jake Stauffer Music. I think there's a period in there somewhere. I post a lot of covers and some original music up on there. And then you can check out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music, anywhere that you can get music. Check out it's Morningside, Morningside Official, Morningside Band. Any of those links will get you in the right spot. And yeah, you can. We just put out a new song not that long ago called Fear and Loathing. It's all about my battle with drugs and substance abuse and getting through it. If you're struggling in that department, go give that song a listen, and hopefully it'll give you a drive to fucking kick the shit.
I love it. That's definitely a good message.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Drugs are bad, kids. Drugs are
They,
bad. They're fucking fun as hell, but they are no
yeah.
good.
No, they are not. All right. Well, everybody, this has been the Get Tuned podcast episode with Jake Stauffer. Jake, thank you so much for being on.
No problem. And everybody go listen to Will's music. It's tight. It's fun. He just put out a music video not that long ago, and it's super nice. Go listen.
Thanks, buddy.
No problem. You have a good trip, and I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.